Hello there, welcome back to profneel. It's a pleasure to have you here. When the teacher became the student of gratitude. In 2019, I was escorted out of my matrimonial house in Palakkad by the police due to a fabricated allegation of domestic violence. So there I was, penniless, homeless, a house which had substantially contributed from my lifetime savings to build. Now I realize that with the judiciary creaking under the weight of piled up cases I was there in for a long wait. But then, a young advocate named Suraj Krishnan stepped in, volunteered to argue my case pro bono after being touched by my innocence, my physical challenge, on hearing me arguing my own case on my first hearing. Then I recalled that two of my students who then had graced my classrooms at the ihmpusa 1989 to 1994 were now senior advocates practicing the Supreme Court, no less. Hesitatingly, I called one of them to state, to start narrating my predicament, as also Suraj Krishnan arguing my case. Barely I had completed, he interrupted me with a "Sir, relax. I will draft your papers personally." Suraj briefed him on every factual and legal aspect of the case. Once Suraj got the drafts, he looked at me with an appreciative eye. Said, "Such caliber of drafting no money can buy, sir. Only love, affection, and respect can." Not once did my Supreme Court advocate student even hint at what his professional fee was. While another miracle was quietly unfolding, far unknown to me, my students from the ihmpusa again, knowing of my predicament, without fanfare or publicity, started crowdfunding me to ensure that I was comfortable with the necessities of life during the long 6 years that the case meandered along. It remains a humbling experience for me. One day, curiosity got the better of me, and I called up my Supreme Court advocate student and I wanted to know why he was only charging me 1 rupee as a fee when given his caliber and experience and his name. If he had devoted the same time for clients, could have made money hand over fist. He laughed to remark, "Sir, when the government of India gifts huge parcels of land for a noble cause, they just charge 1 rupee fee. So I earn substantially and I'll continue to earn. To serve one's teacher is an opportunity, he says, a rare opportunity that I get. I won't want to miss this. But to serve you is a blessing." So there I was like, why? So he says, "We, your class of 1993, were in the first year in 1990, you were assigned to teach us front office. But you influenced us far beyond the 3 hours of front office. Your homework for every lecture was extraordinary and legendary. Every lecture started with an anecdote relative to the topic, concluded with another to send us off to another class smiling. We learnt a lesson on hard work without being taught. Your practical classroom was always lively. Your always classroom was always lively, and for your practical class, the girls had to wear saris, had to attire in saris, and we had almost an equal number of boys and girls. The girls were all attractive, intelligent, and hardworking as well. Supremely confident. We were in our we were in our late we were in our teen years then, and you were in your late 20s, a bachelor. For our practical classes, the girls, as I mentioned, had to attire themselves in a sari. You advise them to discreetly pin the pallu of the sari to the blouse. For a loose pallu could cause embarrassment, drawing unwanted attention. Besides, a loose pallu could come in the way of your while discharging your professional duties, come in your way. So no, nothing of that kind should happen. And then you demonstrated how to wrap the loose end of the pallu around the waist so that no part of the skin is exposed, and your body is completely covered, and the waistline should be above the belly button. Further adding, and this practice starts in my classrooms because your dignity is your professional armor, and it's important that you know that the world is not inhabited by gentlemen only, and certainly not the hospitality industry, where you're going to go there soon for your 6 months industrial training. And the practice starts here, insisting that you started here in your classes. I said yes, I laughed, starting with me. I know that very well. Because I didn't want temptation to test my character long after it was tested. We laughed on that. He continued on a sublime form. As I don't know why that day he was in a very sublime form. He had I don't he had recused himself from the work and continued on. And then he says, I mean, I told him that I had drawn a Lakshman Rekha. He says, sir, we are all very well aware. The girls felt safe in your company more than the elder teachers who were married and settled down with children. Hence, even when your wit was directed at them, mischievous, complete with twinkling eyes and your disarming smile, not not even a small little impropriety was perceived. They all occupied the front rows, to in the practical classes, to answer your questions and to catch your eye and to take your attention. But the Lakshman Rekha, I said, was very important. That's why he was in the element. Before taking me to my classrooms decades back, he says used to latch the classrooms from inside. And even when the principal on his morning rounds used to knock, you would open the door and politely inquire, sir, is there an exigency or an emergency? The message was unmistakably clear. The classroom time belonged to my students only. And then he says one day the script completely changed. And this is one incident which I totally forgotten from my memory. He says one day a senior student knocked on the door and you allowed him in. You listened to him at the door. You heard him out totally, your expression grave, and then you allowed him inside to address us. Apparently, another senior student had financial hardships at home, had not paid his fees despite extensions. He had to pay within 24 hours, clear his outstandings, otherwise he would have to vacate his hostel room and he couldn't attend his classroom. Still, he paid his outstandings. So we all started contributing whatever little we had in those days. You were quietly gazing out of your window, out of the classroom window, and as the senior thanked us and was about to leave, he was almost at the door when he called him and you took out your wallet and emptied out all the currency notes in it. The majority of them 100 rupee notes. So those were 1990, 700 rupees was a big thing. And you just handed it over to him and pivoted to go to the window and start gazing again out. Not a word, not a gesture, nor a pause for applause. That bunch of students who were witness to this in the classroom saw you, the demanding martinet, as a human being then, with compassion when it was needed the most. We were too stunned to react. The news spread like wildfire on the campus, but you were absolutely indifferent to the admiration that this had happened. I told them I don't recall this at all. And if this is true, some acts of kindness don't deserve recognition, let alone being remembered. Because as the great Tamil saint poet Thiruvalluvar, in one of his kurals, the couplets, hasn't he reminded us that forget the assistance you render the moment you rendered it, but never ever forget the assistance you have been rendered for a lifetime. And that's the reason I'll always be grateful to my students till my last breath because they rendered me assistance and I needed it the most. Embrace the twist to enjoy the turn. Thank you.